You've come a long way, but unfortunately you've come in completely the wrong direction, I think is the thing with this AN to orthorexia pipeline that's going on online. We are surrounded by so many extreme diet trends in the world today. The orthorexia is definitely on the rise, and I imagine if you're somewhere where only your insurance company can get you treatment for an ED, but your disorder is not officially recognised in the DSM, that's going to be a huge problem. So hello you wonderful citizen of the internet, and welcome back to another eating disorder related video. Today I wanted to talk about orthorexia and how easy it's becoming to lapse into this, particularly in ED recovery, given the amount of extreme diet fads we seem to be surrounded by in the 2020s. So orthorexia, if you're not familiar with it, it's not actually recognised in the DSM yet, which it really should be, but it's a disorder which doesn't tend to be focused on weight loss. The goal is not weight loss. The goal is the diet itself and how pure or how good or how healthy it is. So you start cutting out something like, say, you go vegetarian, and then you kind of become more precise and you go vegan, maybe you go raw vegan, and then you start cutting out more and more and more things that you're reading, oh, this is impure, or this is bad, or this is cruel or immoral, or there can be like so many, but it's you know, orthorexia, ortho as in like correct. It's the correctness of your diet that you get fixated on, but because of this, you can end up cutting down until there's barely anything left and becoming very malnourished, and weight loss can result, and therefore it can be a very serious, if not deadly, disorder and should be recognised in the DSM. The first case of orthorexia that I came across in my life was probably one of the most severe and strange sounding EDs I've ever come across. It was a friend of a friend who eventually had to be sectioned and locked up and force-fed because his diet had gone in this way from vegetarianism to veganism, and his thing was that he wanted not to hurt anybody. It was like a disease of good-heartedness for him, that he didn't want to cause pain or suffering to any living creature on earth. So he went vegetarian, he went vegan, but then he started reading or believing that plants could also feel pain and were also sentient beings. So he started thinking, well, I can't eat this carrot because I'm going to cause it pain. I can't eat this orange, I'm going to cause it pain, until there was basically nothing left that he could put inside his body, and at that point he had to be sectioned or he would have died. So this is why I say, like, it really needs to be in the DSM, because I imagine if you're somewhere where only your insurance company can get you treatment for an ED, but your disorder is not officially recognised in the DSM, that's going to be a huge fucking problem. So it does need awareness raising, and hopefully that will be something that happens in the next few years, because, as I say, we are surrounded by so many extreme diet trends in the world today. The orthorexia is definitely on the rise, and the sad thing is that a lot of people with orthorexia do not recognise that they have an ED because they feel that their diet is so good and so pure, and actually they feel their diet is better than pretty much everyone around them. And probably it starts out that way when they start this health kick. It does start out that way, but eventually when it's ruining your life and, you know, cutting out social situations and foods and making you feel like crap and making you malnourished, or you're having to get all your nourishment from supplements, which doesn't necessarily work, it's a problem. It is a problem, and you need help. The diet trends we're surrounded by at the moment, you've got everything. You've got everything. You can get online, and there is just everything. You've got like the intermittent fasting thing, which seems to be being shoved down everyone's throat, whether you want to lose weight, whether you just want to get a bit healthier. The advice does seem to be like, stop eating for the majority of the time. And I just have this feeling about intermittent fasting personally. I just don't think it's going to be a lasting trend. I think it is going to be disproved at some point in the next 10 to 15 years, that I think for most people it's probably not good for them, based on purely my own experience of occasionally fasting. I didn't find it did anything positive for me at all. Quite the opposite, really. So you've got that. You've got keto diets, you've got paleo diets, if I'm saying that right. You've got raw veganism. You've got all of these things, which I'm sure can be great for certain people, depending on their lifestyle, on their body type, on their gut bacteria, on all sorts of things. Because bear in mind that everyone's body and mind and lifestyle is different. You know, some people can eat bread and milk and be absolutely fine. Other people cannot. Your lifestyle, your budget, all of it comes into account with how well you're going to get on with a diet. And the thing is, there are so many influencers banging on about all of these different diets. And the really shit thing is that unfortunately, I would say most of the influencers who talk almost exclusively on their platforms about any one of these diets, they're probably going to be an extremist about that diet. Because realistically, if you're like a moderate about a diet, like if you're a raw vegan, but you know, it's just one building block in your whole lifestyle, it's probably not going to be something you want to get online every day or every week and talk about, because it's just a small part of your life. But if your life is consumed by raw veganism and it's like the only thing you think about in the world because you've got orthorexia, of course you're going to have content for days. Of course you're going to be able to get on and talk about these things all the flipping time. You know, one of the reasons that my channel tends to be such a diverse grab bag of things is that I feel it tends to pull you into unhealthy waters if you do really, really, really focus, you know, like your career on one element of something, particularly if that is a dysfunctional something like eating disorders or depression or autism or something like this. If you focus everything on this, that it becomes your whole world and your whole career, I just don't think it's necessarily good for you. And I often don't think it comes from a healthy place. So when it comes to these diets and these influencers who bang on about them all day long, I would say most of them are going to be extremists. And obviously the one that pops into mind is the most famous toxic diet influencer probably ever. And I don't know if she's still posting. Maybe she is. I haven't seen her around lately. But Freely the Banana Girl and her influence on raw veganism. And obviously Freely's story was incredibly when it comes to orthorexia, that I would say Freely was definitely orthorexic in her preaching of this very strange version of raw veganism where she seemed to eat the exact same things every day. She was exercising to the point of like a professional athlete in order to eat all of this food and yet maintain her weight. Her whole day seemed to be focused around exercise and food and the correctness of the diet and talking about the diet online. And orthorexia, I would say personally. But because she'd had like a standard eating disorder before that, and she was preaching this weird diet that was not healthy. It was not healthy. You know, so many people were following Freely's advice and finding that they were gaining even more weight, or that they were becoming very malnourished, or both. Someone even ended up, I think, in hospital, and Freely was still saying, yeah, follow the diet, don't listen to the doctors. But because she was preaching it as, well, this is how I recovered from my ED, and look at me, I can smash in the carbs now. I can eat all of this food and I can stay skinny. The ED'd people were latching onto that like crazy. And there was one girl, I'm afraid I don't remember her name, but there was one girl on YouTube who was clearly very, very, very kind of fixated on Freely. And she would bang on about how she'd recovered from her ED and was now following a lifestyle of abundance based on Freely's teachings, but you could see she wasn't okay. You know, the food she was eating, yes, she was eating a lot of food, but it was all very low calorie density stuff. You know, it was bowls of cold, refrigerated melon and pineapple. She literally had to sit there in a blanket because she was taking into her body like a bowl this big of refrigerated melon. You know, all the comments were like, we can see that you're struggling for words. You don't seem clear-headed. Your hair looks frazzled. Your face looks grey. You don't look healthy. You are not healthy on this diet. This is not good. And I hope that girl found, proper recovery at some point and stopped being so kind of blindfolded by Freely's teachings and the fact that, yes, you can eat a lot of food and stay skinny on this diet, but you're still going to feel like shit. The whole reason that I think a lot of people eventually get out of their eating disorder, or certainly for me, was that I'm sick of feeling like shit. You know, I don't want to feel like shit anymore. The whole point, I think, of recovery should be, I want to be able to use food as fuel to enjoy and experience my human life. You know, that has to be the whole purpose of food, I feel like. And if your recovery is meaning that, you know, whatever you're taking in and however much it is, if you are still feeling like shit and you are still not being able to go out and experience the world, there is still something wrong and out of balance there, no matter how correct the diet feels. And these days that there are, you know, people pushing, again, recovering or who claim to be recovered, ED'd people, pushing things like intermittent fasting, living on 38 supplements in the morning and saying, this is fine, a nutritionist recommended it to me. And as people pointed out in the comments of that video, I don't really want to just like send everyone over there in curiosity and all of that, but just taking this as an example, everyone in the comments could completely see through this diet and was saying, look, 38 supplements for your breakfast. Your stomach is going to rot away. Some supplements you can't take at the same time as each other. They're going to collide with each other. They're going to do awful things in your kidneys. You can't necessarily digest a load of supplements without having food in your stomach too. And who the fuck nutritionist suggests intermittent fasting to a recovering anorexic person? That is just so twisted. But this is the thing, the mind games with orthorexia, particularly in recovery from anorexia, is that you feel, oh, well, I'm doing so much better and I feel a bit better than I did when I was eating nothing at all. Therefore, everything is fine and everything is great. And if you unfortunately do have someone in your life who is telling you this is fine, whether that's a shitty nutritionist, dietitians are far better. Apparently, I knew there was one that was good and one that was bad. I've seen them both. Dietitians are the good ones. Nutritionists, anyone can be a fucking nutritionist. It takes like no training. Don't trust them necessarily. But if you've got that, you know, being pushed in your life, or if you've even just got an influencer that you watch who is really, really, really pushing home this dodgy diet, and it's so normalized online that, you know, wherever you go online these days, you can find whatever diet it is you're into. You can probably find a forum or a subreddit or whatever that is about this diet. And you're going to find people who are way more extreme than you, or it's going to be very normalized to be very extreme in this diet. And that is going to blindfold you to the fact that you have a problem. And like I said, the mind game with orthorexia is that you don't have a problem. The mind game is that I eat better than anyone I know. I'm eating correctly. I'm healthier than everyone I know because I'm doing all of these things. And look at all the supplements I'm putting in my body. I'm really taking care of myself. That's the mind game because you feel you're doing all of that. But oftentimes, no. What's the quote that really works for recovery when it's gone wrong? You've come a long way, but unfortunately you've come in completely the wrong direction, I think is the thing with this AN to orthorexia pipeline that's going on online. Anorexia people fall into this because it's like, look, if I let myself have no rules, I'm afraid I'm going to balloon. But if I keep some rules in place, maybe I can kind of recover a bit and feel a bit better, but not actually have to deal with the weight gain. This is a brilliant idea. You know, that's kind of how it can go. So I would just say, be cautious with who you watch online when it comes to any kind of like diet content, particularly if you do have EDs, either in your personal history or in your family history, because there can be like a DNA or upbringing issue with EDs. It can run in families. So if any of that kind of rings a bell with you, I would be very, very careful and try and take a step back and be kind of suspicious of everything you see online about diets. And like, okay, so this, because I think that the real trap we fall into is how fabulous the person looks when they're talking about this diet. So, you know, this was the thing with Freely the Banana Girl. You know, she was really skinny with you know, her enhanced tits and everything. She looked great. And everyone thought, wow, if I do this, I will look great, completely ignoring the fact that, like, say, she was doing as much exercise as a professional athlete. So, of course, she looked brilliant, you know. And I think this is the problem with the gym bros as well. Like, the gym bros are not okay, and that is a whole topic for another video. But we see these people online and they're either, you know, very slim and model-esque, or they're just ripped as fuck, and you think, wow, if I eat like that, maybe I'll look like that. And we don't take into account, okay, but how much of their life do they dedicate to like food preparation? How much are they spending on food? How much of the time are they spending in the gym? How, you know, do they feel okay? Do they feel healthy and happy on this diet? And would all of these things fit into my lifestyle, my body, my budget, my mentality? Would I want to do all of these things in order to have this body? Is it worth it to me? Because I think one of the big, probably the biggest kind of pillar of ED recovery is compromise. And it's one of the things I think that comes best with age, because when you're young, you can't bear the idea of compromise. You can't bear the idea that, look, I have to give up on having the ideal body or the perfect body, and I have to just kind of settle for having like an average, slightly stodgy body, but it's going to be worth it because I'm going to feel a lot better and I'm going to get more out of my life. That idea when you're young, you cannot swallow. It's unbearable. You want to have it all. You keep thinking, look, I'm young, I'm indestructible, I feel not that bad on this diet, so therefore I'm going to keep pursuing it. But I think as you get older and you start feeling more and more and more shitty in your body because it's aging and it can't cope with this extreme diet anymore, and you just get more balanced and more realistic. You start to realize, look, the compromise is worth it. The compromise is worth it. I'm going to lose the amazing body that I maybe had while I was ED'd, but I'm going to gain so much other stuff. But when we see these people who look so fucking perfect online and they're preaching this diet and they're preaching that, yeah, you could have all of this back if you just followed this weird fucking diet, it can really get in your head. Even if you're someone who's quite far into recovery, I feel like that shit can get in your head. If you're teased with the temptation of everything that you used to have or used to want or used to focus so hard on, and you're being told, oh, it's as easy as this. Dude, it is never as easy as this. Like, whatever diet they're pushing, to have this kind of like extremely extreme body type that we seem to be idealizing both in men and in women these days, to have that kind of body, it is never easy. There is no easy fix. And anyone who's telling you there's an easy fix is bullshitting. Even if they're talking about like taking drugs for it, you know, some kind of like medication or whatever, this will make you lose weight and it'll be effortless. Dude, it never is. The minute you look up the side effects, you think, I don't think this is worth it. Orthorexia, yeah, these are all the traps that can lead you into it. So yeah, I would just say, keep your guard up with these extreme diets. If you are someone who's recovering from anorexia or bulimia or whatever it is, and you're in that stage whereby you're trying to relearn how to eat normally again because you've completely forgotten what a, quote quotation, normal person eats like, it can be difficult. And I would say you want to take your advice from various people. And if anyone does kind of throw doubts on your diet and go, no, that still looks pretty fucking disordered to me, I would try and get advice from a dietitian. Like the hands down, the most helpful person I ever saw with my ED was an ED specialist dietitian. I only saw her one time, but she was brilliant. So if you can get one of those in your life, I would say that would be the dream, I think, for like anyone recovering. ED specialist dietitian. There are not enough of them in the world, but even if you can just see a standard dietitian and you can just say, look, I have no idea how to feed myself anymore. Can you give me a food plan? Like, I'm so used to having rules around food, and the idea of letting go of all of those is terrifying. So can you give me a new set of rules that is healthy? I think that is the question that you need to ask a dietitian sometimes, rather than deciding to fill in these rules with advice from an online influencer who's probably a bit orthorexic themselves, because, there has to be something a bit extreme, I feel like, or a bit wonky, driving someone to constantly make content about food. Some people, you can tell, okay, they've just got a genuine love of food. They love cooking. It relaxes them. It's all this, when it's about the cooking process, you can tell this is someone who just loves cooking. But when it's weird stuff that there's not much like cooking process, it's just about kind of looking at the food and taking pictures of the food and it looking elegant and it looking put together and nice and minimalistic and all of this. I just feel like, why are we so fixated on food porn on this channel? And if you're a slim person who is fixated on food porn, I sense a glaring, blaring eating disorder siren personally. So, I would just say be a little bit suspicious of kind of food and recovery and what I eat in a day type accounts. And if someone does have an eating disorder in their history and now they're following a diet that seems kind of a little bit whack to you, it's probably not the greatest diet to follow, even if they do keep harping on about the fact that they're following the advice of a well-renowned nutritionist. That's still like one person out there, and like say anyone can be a nutritionist. It's not a hard qualification to get. If you look in the comments and there's like 100 people saying this is crazy, what are you doing, this is messed up, compared to like one well-renowned nutritionist, I would go with the majority rule in that case. So, so I'm sorry I haven't really focused on like if you have orthorexia and what to do about it and all of that, because it's not a subject I'm particularly familiar with in terms of how you recover from orthorexia. I mean, obviously go to your doctor, try and advocate for yourself, do learn as much as you can about orthorexia first, because of the fact that it's not in the DSM. There is like a reasonably high chance of you getting a complete dickhead doctor who is like, look, it's not recognized, can't do anything, don't care, go away. But if that happens to you, get a second opinion. Hopefully, if you get a second opinion, at least one of those doctors is going to give a shit and be helpful. But yeah, when it comes to having these very, very rigid rules around food, I'm afraid that's something that I broke out of so many years ago that I can't put myself back in my shoes in those days and remember what it was to feel this absolute crushing panic about breaking these food rules that I'd given myself. But breaking out of it was so difficult, and it was such a long process of breaking out of it. But I do feel once I'd broken out of it, even though I did relapse with my eating disorder numerous times after that, the rules never became so rigid again for me. But I know that's not how it goes for everyone. Some people do fall back or fall into a different ED and find that the rules become just as rigid, if not more so than ever before. So I don't know what the best advice is, other than to say work with whatever level of recovery you are capable of obtaining and that you are willing to change for at this moment in time. What I mean by that, I have never been able to just jump into full recovery in one step. I've never been able to take that leap of faith. It's always had to be tiny, tiny, tiny little steps that eventually get me there. And some therapists will disagree with this stance. They'll say, look, you've got to be in it for 100% recovery or there's no point me working with you. And if they feel like that, then, and you feel the same as I do, then find someone else to work with who is willing to work with you on this little steps thing. Because even if you can't face like the whole big scary future of like full recovery and the weight gain and all of the stuff that's so terrifying, just work with the little bits of improvement you feel you can make at the moment, and you will find that those stepping stones lead you there in the end. So if you're willing to break like one food rule or up your calories by however much and just see how that goes, if even that is scary, say, look, I'm going to do this for like a month or even a week, and I'm just going to see how I feel and what it does for me. Sometimes you can use like the experiment thing. You can kind of go, I'm going to experiment with doing this, with taking away this rule for a week. I'm going to experiment with it, and if I don't like it, then I'll put it back in place. And if you're willing to kind of play these mind games with yourself, sometimes you will find that it pulls you into full recovery. So work with whatever level of improvement you can, because obviously, as this video demonstrates, there are so many ways for recovery to go wrong. And I do think a lot of the people who go from anorexia to orthorexia, they probably are people who have recovered too fast, too quickly, when they're not really ready for it, when they maybe haven't got enough support in place, and they've started gaining weight and they felt, I haven't got enough rules around food, like I'm ballooning, this is no good, I need to latch onto a healthy diet, I need some rules back in place. And it started maybe as a healthy diet, but then their anorexic mentality and their perfectionist mentality have caught up with them, and it's dragged them into a whole other ED. So if you are needing to do recovery very, very, very slowly, that is okay. And there are so many subjects around all of this that I still want to speak about, but I have waffled long enough, so back to the video. You try and advocate for yourself. You are sick enough, like whatever your weight is, whatever's going on, despite the fact that orthorexia is not in the DSM. Like, if it is impacting your life, if it is making you miserable or cutting things out of your life that you love, cutting people out of your life that you love, all of these things that, you know, are the real kind of hallmark of an addiction or eating disorder, like, you clearly have a problem and you do need help and you are worthy of it. So please try and seek it out. And I guess with all of that waffled, I will do a shut up. So if there's any other eating disorder related stuff you would like me to waffle about, please let me know below. I do have kind of a bit of a long list at the moment, actually, of eating disorder related things I wanted to waffle about. So I will get to those soon. But anyway, I hope you're having a reasonably okay night or day wherever you are. Maybe even a fantastic night or day wherever you are. That would be cool. But anyway, I'm going to shut the fuck up now. So thank you for listening. Over and out. Bye-bye.